morning, good morning. It's Monday, June 22nd, 2015. How's everybody doing today? Well, I'm doing pretty good here today. I had a question from a viewer, and he was asking, I was wondering if you had any advice on the model of camper and maybe the truck. And that's a great question. It's a very generalized question, and it can have many multiple answers. I don't think that there certainly isn't one answer that's going to work for everybody across the board, and I don't really have any one recommendation. I can only offer you what I like, what my personal preferences are, and you know, through some of the research and through some of the research and study that I've done, I can offer you some some good suggestions, some good places to start. So with I have done a few videos talking about a lot of this topic and answering this question, but I thought that I would go through and talk about it again and give you some of my point of view on a model of truck camper and the truck. So yeah, you know, it just depends. It depends on your budget that you have to work with or not to work with. It depends. To me, it depends on your choosing something. It depends on your skill level. If you don't have a lot of money, then you should be, if you don't have a lot of money but you have skills, then you could remodel a truck camper. You could find one of those older Avions that I made a video of the other day, and you could get your hands on one of those and totally go in there and remodel it. Pick up one of those for $2 to $5 grand, and then spend another couple of grand remodeling one. If you have the skills and you're handy, but you lack some of the financial resources, that's one thing that you could do. If you are the other thing that I would advise is if you lack some of the money if you lack some of the money to buy a camper. I wouldn't recommend necessarily settling on something. I would recommend saving your money. I'd recommend keep on working and keep on saving your money, and go out there and set a goal for what it is that you really want. Because if you devote the time and delay some gratification and set a goal for whatever camper it is that you really want, truck camper that you want, you're going to be a lot more happier in the long run by getting what you want. I mean, you might not be able to get your dream like your first camper. You might have to step it up a little bit, but you're going to be well better getting what it is that you want and saving your money. And maybe that's going to take you a couple of years to do. But in my personal opinion, paying cash for something and saving your money is the way to go. It's the only way to go in my opinion. Money. So with those two things being said, like I said, there's a lot of options. If you go out there and you have limited money, if you have 10 grand to spend, yes, you can find some great truck campers out there and some great deals. If you're willing to negotiate things and you know what you're buying, because there are some money pits out there, and you have to really be careful when you buy a used truck camper. Especially water damage, and water damage is probably the biggest culprit that you're looking for in a used camper, because that's always the dry rot and that sort of stuff. It's always the you're best off passing up on one of those campers if you run into one of those. So yeah, there are some good deals out there. If you got 10 grand, and you just got to be willing to you got to be willing to look, and you got to be willing to negotiate the deal. I mean, there are some great deals out there. There really are, but you got to be patient, and sometimes you got to be quick. You got to be quick to pounce on some of these good deals that are out there. And you got to be willing to drive, travel to wherever they are. So so that's kind of my that's kind of my talk on that. So I'm going to cover a lot of different. I'm going to cover different angles, different bases that could really appeal to just everybody, from how much ever money you have, or kind of how much ever money you don't have, and kind of give you a guide from my point of view. Now let's talk a little bit more. Let's get a little bit more specific here. Okay, so what model of camper do you recommend? And I'm going to give you what I recommend, and that's going to be a hard shell, a fiberglass shell truck camper. That's going to be what I recommend. Okay, so with that being said, one of the drawbacks with that is, if we're talking buying a used one, is that the interior ceiling height in a hard shell truck camper manufactured prior to 2012 is going to be maximum interior ceiling height of 6'4". So, and then you've got to also factor in the air conditioner too. So that's going to be, if you're a tall person, then that's going to be a problem for you. If you're over 6, if you're like me and you're 6'6", that's going to be a problem for you. And if you want a hard shell camper, you're going to have to get a Northern Lite 2012 and newer production date 10'2" models only. Okay, that's the only mold that they built those in. So when I talk hard shell camper, I'm talking either Bigfoot or a Northern Lite. And so with that being said, there are some. You can get into. I talked to a guy on the phone about a month ago, and he bought a 2005 Northern Lite, like 9'6" model. And I think he picked it up for like $13,000, and it had been stored inside, and it hadn't been used very much. So that's a pretty good deal. I mean, $13,000. I mean, the thing was like 30,000 new. It's an 05, so it's 10 years old. So that's, I kind of give you a little bit of an, and that was here on the West Coast. So I kind of give you an idea of, if something's 10 years old, you should be, and something that's in really good shape, you should probably be expecting to pay about half the price of what it was new. To give you a little bit of a ballpark there. So I do recommend, if you want a truck camper for living in year round, I recommend a 4-season hard shell truck camper. Yes, there are other brands out there, which I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about some of the other ones. But if like I said, if you want something that you're going to live in, and I don't care what climate that you're going to be living in, I definitely would recommend a 4-season camper. And so the next levels to me would be like your Lances 4-season, your Arctic Fox 4-season. Another great brand is Eagle Cap, and I'm talking about the used ones, like the ones that were built from like 04, 05 up to, I'm not sure, it's like 2011 or 2012, and Adventurer bought out Eagle Cap, and back in like 2012 or somewhere in there, and then according to one of the sales reps that I talked to that was selling the Eagle Caps, the newer ones and stuff, he said that he just kind of inclinated that the quality of the manufacturing isn't really what it was. It wasn't what it used to be when Eagle Cap was its own company. So, but I looked at some of those older Eagle Caps that were built, 05, 07, and those Eagle Caps are built very well. They're a 4-season camper, and as far as I'm concerned, they're right up there with Arctic Foxes, or maybe even a little bit better in quality. So, put Eagle Cap on your list. Lances are good. I generally like a lot of campers, the used ones, that are like 05, 07, and newer. I know that a lot of the roof designs were starting to get a lot better. Some of the roof designs were getting a lot better. The quality, the materials they were using for the roofs were getting a lot better, and getting lighter weight. But Lance is a good manufacturer, and what I like about Lance is they offer they've got a lot of different models, and they kind of offer many different layouts, a lot of different layouts. Short bed trucks, long bed trucks. They've got a lot of selection, a lot to choose from there. So if you can find an older Lance, then that's what I'd recommend. Okay, so now I just have the thought. Let's Slideouts. I don't recommend Slideouts. I don't like Slideouts. There's too many things that they're just one more thing that's going to require some maintenance, and it's going to require they have a tendency to sometimes they can get stuck, and they won't slide back in. It just opens up some more problems for yourself. So in a truck camper, I do not recommend a slide out. Some people like them because of the extra room that they have, and if there's going to be two people living in there, and you got dogs and cats and whatever, then that just may be what's going to be the best choice for you. It's just going to depend on you. But if you're asking me, I don't like them. I don't like them, and I'm talking just truck campers here. I'm not talking about other RVs. I don't really like them. I don't really like slide outs in other RVs. I really don't. They just like I said, the maintenance issues, and then they're just like the RVs aren't as tighter, because they're always going to be in the wintertime. They're always going to be allowing in some type of a little bit of a draft of some sort, so that it just exposes you more to the elements. So that's that. So let's see here. I've talked about Lances. I've talked about Eagle Caps. The Arctic Foxes, I don't like the older Arctic Foxes, like the early 2000s. Probably, in my personal opinion, I kind of like Arctic Foxes that are like 06, 07 and newer. I just heard a lot of stories about, a lot of slide out problems, and then I think that, okay, that's another thing. The wood versus aluminum superstructure. A lot of the older Arctic Foxes, they had a wood structure, inside built structure, and then in like 07, don't quote me on these years, because I'd have to go back and look at my research, but it was like 06 or 07 that they went to an aluminum superstructure, and Lance also did that like in around 2011, I believe. So I would definitely recommend that aluminum over the wood. One interesting thing that I did learn about that aluminum versus the wood is that the wood is easier. It's faster and easier to build from a production manufacturing standpoint. But the aluminum, it costs more money. And I was talking to a sales guy about it, and I don't know, he was just telling me that a lot of the aluminum, it's kind of a sales pitch to sell. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. The aluminum is good, but it costs a lot more to build one of those aluminum units than it does the wood units. And according to him, the wood is just as good as the aluminum. I don't know. I haven't done all the research on that, but a lot of it does make sense. I know my Northern Lite, it's built. I have wood. I've got wood like inside, but the outside is all fiberglass. It's all exterior fiberglass, but there's wood construction built inside the cabinetry and the guts of everything. So let's see. So we're talking hard shell campers. Yeah, we're talking Bigfoot or Northern Lite. Differences between Bigfoot and Northern Lite. I was reading I did a little bit of research on it, and I guess one of the big things is apparently the bed, the bed dimensions. In the Northern Lite, it's a full queen size mattress. It's a 60 by 80, and I think in the Bigfoots it's like a 60 by 74. So that was kind of a big difference that I picked up on the Bigfoots. One of the big differences, and some of the others were just kind of real small, similar small things. But basically, back in 88 or 89, when Northern Lite began their company manufacturing campers, basically there was a couple of guys that left Bigfoot. Bigfoot started the hard shell campers, and then a couple of guys left Bigfoot and they started their own company, Northern Lite, and then they started doing their own thing, and according to them, building a superior product out there in the market, and they've gotten a lot of words for everything. But I've heard both sides. I've heard people say that, Bigfoot builds a better unit than Northern Lite, and I've heard it both ways. But the general consensus is that Northern Lite builds a superior product. So I'll just kind of leave it at that, and you can decide for yourself. Eagle caps, Eagle caps, Lances, Arctic Foxes. There's a lot of good units out there, but a lot of truck campers aren't four season. So those ones that I mentioned, they are 4 season. So that's and that's just going to give you some better insulation. It's not going to necessarily mean that you're going to be guaranteed that nothing's going to freeze or whatever. And that's not true. I mean, there's if you want to be out in 0-degree weather, there's still a lot of modifications that you need to make to your unit to insulate it better, to protect it better. So just because you're buying a 4-season unit, it doesn't guarantee anything. It's just going to give you some better insulation capability, some better insulation qualities with the 4-season. And then there's around the pipes and the outside and the doors for your access doors to your dump tanks. They've got they've got insulation on the doors, to prevent that cold from freezing. So those are the campers that I would recommend to look at and go after. And then again, that Avion camper that was made in the late 60s, if you like some of that vintage campers, they are out there. They're hard to find, but those are, sort of like buying an older Airstream. And, the nice part about those is they've got that aluminum structure on it. They don't leak, and very low maintenance, things to do there on the outside, and they're built pretty solid. But being something that was built that old, you can pretty much guarantee on having to remodel it and replace the dump tanks. I know that that guy that I talked to there at the beach, he was saying he's going to have to replace his black tank, I think. And so you're definitely buying a project, when you buy something that's old like that. So you definitely have to keep that in mind. And like I said, this is where I want to go back to it again, and I say, do your research. Do your research on everything, all right? And I don't care how much money you have or how much little money you have. Do plenty of research, and then once you've figured out what you want and what's going to work best for you, save your money and get the best possible thing that you can, and like I said, negotiate when you're out there and you're looking for you're buying used deals out there. Negotiate good deals, and if you've got all cash and you negotiate, get the best deal that you possibly can. And it might even be doing some trading maybe to get it, or some exchanging. So yeah, let's kind of talk a little bit about trucks. If you're going to ask me, what I like in trucks, personally, I like the older ones. I like the older diesels, Ford and Cummins, that were produced from early 90s all the way up to Um, about 97, 98 in Dodges, and then in the Ford, I like the older 7.3s, and they made those up to 2003. So I like the older stuff when it comes to trucks. You know, the only, I mean, there are some, mostly the newer truck that you get, you know, you're basically getting something that's more comfortable. And then when it comes to engines, they're definitely going to be way more electronic and way more difficult to diagnose problems. Sometimes get parts. You know, I mean, if you're somebody that wants a dependable truck that you're going to like hang on to for a long time and you're going to take care of, you know, there's nothing wrong with the older trucks. You know, unless you've got deep pockets and you plan on just you know, replacing your truck every 2 or 3 years, and a lot of people do that. They just replace them every couple of years. Then, well, good for you, I guess. But personally, I like the older diesel engine trucks. They're just they're built very well, and they're going to last. They're going to last a long time if you take good care of them. But then again, it goes back to your particular situation. You know, you might just get along fine with a gas engine. You may not want that. Like I said, my truck I plan on keeping it for a very long time. I have no reason. I don't like what's out there in the market currently. In my personal opinion, there's nothing new out there that's better than what I have right now. There just isn't. The technology hasn't improved everything. The engines aren't getting like, I mean, my truck engine gets way better gas mileage than a lot of these newer, these new Power Stroke diesels. I mean, these things suck. I mean, they've got all the emission, all this emission crap on it, smog equipment, and it just chokes down the engines. They can't breathe. So, you know, I don't, in my opinion, I don't see how a lot of this new stuff that's being made is better than what I have. You know, it's not. And these new trucks, they're very expensive. I mean, we're talking dually trucks. I mean, it's nothing to spend $60,000, $70,000 on one of these trucks. You know, we're talking a lot of money, you know, where you can get into a truck like I have for, anywhere between, you know, $7 to $12,000, you can get yourself into a nice older Cummins diesel truck, you know. And we're talking, you know, if we're talking single, you know, so what you want to do is you want to find a truck camper that you want first, and then once you find your truck camper, match a truck up to that truck camper. So that's going to kind of explain the whole whether you need a single rear wheel or you need a dually truck. The two-wheel drive thing or the four-wheel drive thing, I did a video on that a while ago. That's just going to depend on your needs and where you plan on taking it. And if you live in the mountains and with snow, then you're going to be best off with a four-wheel drive. You know, if you're like me and you live here on the Oregon coast and you hardly see any any snow, you know, you really don't need it. You know, it's just you know, you just don't need it. So yeah, that's going to be, you know, that's kind of my take on that. I don't really have, like I said, if we're talking trucks, I like Dodges. I like the older Dodges, but like I said, you can plan on, you know, the weak link in the Dodges, and even in those Fords, even in those older Power Stroke Fords, it's the transmission. So you can pretty much plan on having one rebuilt or find an older unit that has been rebuilt and it was, you know, they've got paperwork to prove everything that the work that's been done to them. And then another important thing that you want to do in these old trucks, if for one of these older trucks, I mean, even gas, I mean, diesel definitely is, you want to, I would recommend dropping the oil pan for the automatic transmissions. Manual transmissions, you're probably going to be fine. You're just going to need to, you know, test the clutch out and see how that free play is and stuff on the clutch and how the transmission works. But I definitely would recommend that, because what you can find is, you know, you can drop these oil pans, you can find some metal in the pan, And what that means is you've got some components that have grenaded inside that automatic transmission, and it's going to need a rebuild. So, so that's kind of a really important tip. So, so yeah, that's those are basically basically my thoughts on model of camper. You have to find out what is going to what you need, and what are you going to you might be fine with just an 8-foot camper. You might want an 11-footer, 11.5-footer. You're just going to have to decide on what's going to best best work for you, and all that sort of stuff. So I hope that I was able to kind of answer your question better from my point of view. And if you have some more questions, please comment below, and I will respond to them and let you guys know what I think. So that's all I got for now, guys. We'll talk to you later. You guys have a great day.